You might think you know Lois Griffin, the unlucky woman to be married to a borderline lunatic like Peter and the so-called voice of a reason in a house full of maniacs. Don't be fooled. Lois has done some horrible things herself, such as being a former adult film star, a drug dealer, a murderer. She also cheated on Peter at least 12 times, such that Chris might not even be Peter's biological son. But there's so much more to Lois's story, and it gets even worse. So let's start from the beginning. Lois Griffin was born Lois Peterschmidt, the second of 3 children in one of the wealthiest, snobbiest families on the East Coast. Raised in the sprawling Peterschmidt mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, Lois grew up alongside her younger sister Carol and, unbeknownst to her for many years, an older brother named Patrick who, fun plot twist, turned out to be a serial killer and was swiftly shipped off to a mental institution. You know, normal rich people problems. Her childhood was dripping with luxury but lacking emotional warmth, with Carter Peterschmidt as her cold-hearted, power-hungry father and Babs as the emotionally distant trophy wife. Lois's early years were basically full of piano recitals, expensive tutors, and unmet emotional needs. While expected to follow the high society script, Lois had sparks of rebellion from the start. We don't know a great deal about Lois and Carol's early relationship, but Carol clearly took the emotional neglect of their parents in a different direction, one that led her into the arms of nearly every man in Quahog. By the time we meet her in season 3, she's been divorced 8 times and counting.
I'm sorry, sweetheart. It's just that she's my sister.
No wonder her husband's all left her.
Well, that's what her problem is. She has such low self-esteem that every time a man shows her the slightest glimmer of attention, she rushes into something serious and gets her heart broken like a teenage girl.
It's not hard to imagine that both sisters were searching for love in very different, very chaotic ways. Carol eventually found stability with Mayor Adam West, and they remained married until his passing. Now Patrick, Lois's long-lost older brother, is an entirely different storm. As a child, he walked in on his mother, and, well, that traumatized him. The trauma broke something in him, and Carter had Patrick shipped off to an asylum and scrubbed him from family memory. But when Lois discovered the truth, she released him and unknowingly unleashed the Fat Guy Strangler. Yeah, Patrick had developed a deep-seated hatred of overweight people and began murdering them around Quahog. But luckily, Patrick voluntarily returned to the hospital. Good call, honestly. In her teenage years, Lois developed a real passion for modeling, a path she genuinely wanted to pursue. But Carter, more concerned with appearances than happiness, crushed that dream.
Well, I wanted to, but your grandfather wouldn't let me. But, Daddy, they offered me a contract.
My girl is not lowering herself to modeling. That sort of uncouth activity is below this family.
So sadly, her dreams were shelved in favor of etiquette classes in school. At 18, Lois went off to college, initially Kent State. Through partial terms of endearment, later reveals she graduated from Sal Regina University. College was the beginning of Lois's great unraveling. She partied, broke rules, and even starred in an adult film.
In college, I was in an adult film.
Oh my God, you did a porno?
Shh, please.
Well, for a life choice she had wanted to keep buried, she just shared it with someone she fully barely knew, and the reporter Joyce Kinney would later expose it live on air. But in classic Lois fashion, she flipped the script, owning her past, showing the film at church.
A simple mistake. And here it is.
You know, Lois, a church is so not the place of all places where you play something like this, but it is weird that that earned the congregation's applause. So while Lois might have done this way back when she was in high school, by the time she returned home, she was no longer the prim little heiress Carter tried to raise. She was unpredictable, bold, and more than a little chaotic. Now, Lois's last named age is 43, though she celebrated an unspecified birthday in the show. She's reportedly 2 years younger than Peter, as mentioned in Let's Go to the Hop, though Meet the Quagmire suggests they were both 18 at the same time. But speaking of Peter, that brings us to one of the strangest, most chaotic, and definitely most questionable chapters in Lois Griffin's life. Lois and Peter's early relationship. Now, Lois and Peter's relationship has always raised a few eyebrows, because, let's be real, what's a refined woman like her doing with a walking, talking beer stain like Peter Griffin? But when you consider Lois's rebellious streak, it actually makes a lot of sense. She was never cut out to be the high-class society girl her parents wanted, so falling for a guy like Peter doesn't sound so surprising. Their origin story was revealed in one of the most unhinged ways possible, when Death himself took Peter back in time to relive the moment they first met. Why? Because Peter couldn't be bothered to celebrate their anniversary. Instead, he was out golfing, got struck by lightning, and ended up in some weird death limbo. So, how did it all begin? Peter was hired as a janitor to clean the Peterschmidt's pool, but somehow Peter went out to woo Lois. He did his belly impressions and weird jokes, and she was hooked. The two ended up making out by the road and caused a truck to explode, so explosive love indeed. Carter, of course, wasn't having any of it. No self-respecting billionaire is going to hand his daughter over to a guy who farts as a personality trait, so he had Peter knocked out and dumped in the middle of the ocean. But love doesn't sink that easily. Peter came back and even turned down a $1 million bribe from Carter to stay away from Lois.
Now listen, Griffin. I want you to take this and stay away from my daughter forever.
$1 million?
$1 million.
No deal. Lois may be worth $1 million to you, but to me, she's worthless. I love her, Mr. Pewterschmidt.
And this was how they officially became a couple. Lois even later revealed that her father had also later offered her a $10 million check, but she passed it up because, well, money isn't everything.
All right, buddy, we did it. We're rich.
We? Go to hell, you fat peasant.
Oh, crap.
Peter, listen to me. Money doesn't matter. 10 years ago, Daddy offered to give us $10 million, and I turned it down.
What?
From there, their love story rolled on. Chaotic, weird, but genuine. But Peter almost managed to nuke their entire timeline. In a Back to the Future style episode, Peter regrets marrying young and missing out on his party years. So he convinces Death to send him back to his 18-year-old self, and the moment he gets there, he's a jerk to Lois.
Lois, we got the rest of our lives for me to not hear a word you just said, but tonight I got plans with Cleveland.
A total douchebag, I know. He even ends up making out with someone else entirely. But when he returns to the future, everything's changed. Lois never married him. Instead, she's married to Quagmire. Turns out that after Peter ghosted her in the past, Quagmire swooped in, asked her to a dance, and sealed the deal with a kiss. And honestly, Lois and Quagmire were kinda adorable together. They actually seemed happier than she ever was with Peter, but Peter wasn't about to let the love of his life go, so he time-hopped again, punched Quagmire mid-kiss, and made sure to win Lois back with a heartfelt declaration.
No, I meant that much to you.
Are you kidding? Lois, I couldn't bear to live without you.
Of course, that didn't mean smooth sailing, because even after all that, they broke up again. In the episode Peter and Lois's wedding, we see that after college, Peter and his friends moved to the city. He and Lois had broken up, but he had never stopped loving her.
But despite having broken up, I would sometimes sneak away to the internet to go flirt with your mom.
He finally works up the nerve to propose, only to find out she's engaged to Tom Tucker, thanks to some gentle manipulation from her ever-scheming father. And again, Tom did seem like a more logical choice. Almost anyone else is a better choice than Peter. Still, Peter crashes the wedding and confesses his love. Lois isn't convinced, especially because she thinks Peter cheated on her with a woman named Daisy, but Peter clears the air.
Because you felt something?
Because Carter paid me.
Well, that's something.
Daddy, is that true?
I only did it to protect you from making a huge mistake.
Lois and Peter end up eloping together and getting married right on the field at Fenway Park like the chaotic romantics they are. But it is also revealed that Lois was already pregnant with Meg at the time.
I was having serious regrets about my decision, but was already pregnant with Meg, so there was no backing out.
And that launches us into Lois's most complicated role yet, motherhood. Not long after getting hitched, Lois gave birth to Meg. Their first move as new parents, trying to abandon her at a fire station. But when that flopped, they shrugged, took her home, and moved into the now iconic house on Spooner Street. According to Mission Possible, the house itself was paid for after Peter won a lawsuit involving a broken condom, which also happened to be how Chris came into the picture. Anyway, as Meg, Chris, and Stewie came into Lois's life, so did her descent into truly questionable parenting. Let's start with her relationship with her first daughter, Meg. At first, Lois and Meg had something of a typical mother-daughter bond. She was also there to back her up whenever Peter humiliated her, but along the line, Lois started getting cruel. And if that wasn't bleak enough, in Peter's daughter, Meg pours her heart out and tells Lois she loves her, but then Lois just cannot bring herself to say it back.
I love you.
You too, honey.
But of course, Meg isn't the only victim of Lois's maternal madness. Sure, Lois can be the voice of reason at times, but just as often, she's completely off the rails. She's puked all over Stewie, gotten addicted to pills, and at one point dunked Stewie's head in the toilet just to retrieve a pill that fell in.
Oh my god, that's the last pill! Oh, damn it, my hand's too big, it won't fit! Oh, Stewie, if you don't get it...
Ah, damn you!
Come on, you just touched it!
But the worst of it, that would be the time Lois ran over Stewie with her car, but instead of owning up to it, she immediately tried to pin the blame on someone else.
He's unconscious. Peter, we have to cover this up.
Yeah, but what?
Let's put a...
Chris might be the only one Lois doesn't constantly mistreat, but she still has her crazy moments. Like that time she started teaching at Chris's school, and a rumor spread that he was hooking up with a hot new teacher. Instead of shutting it down, Lois jumps in and confirms it herself.
He was 22 inches and 11 pounds.
Still not sure if that was a weird attempt at motherly protection or just plain disturbing. But even this might be one of the least unhinged things Lois has done. Lois's dark side. For someone raised in a sheltered environment with a somewhat tame upbringing, Lois is nothing like that. She has sold drugs, gotten addicted to them, and not just that, she's also a murderer and has attempted to kill a bunch of other people. I mean, it's more than just a simple wild and dark side. Take, for example, the time she traumatized Chris by killing off the fictional Arthur Valentine created to cheer him up on Valentine's Day. Chris becomes catatonic, totally unresponsive. While Lois is tending to him, she confides a dark secret. She reveals to Chris that she killed someone by hitting them with their car.
That's why all mothers do that. Every mother has killed someone.
And that's not her only victim. In a flashback in the episode Deep Throats, she admits to killing a waitress on their honeymoon, all as part of a sick game they played. And Lois wasn't always a saint in her school days either. Back in high school, she was a bully to Joyce, shoving a hot dog into her mouth and pulling down her pants in front of the entire school, leaving Joyce scarred for life. This is what would make Joyce take revenge on her by having the news of Lois starring in an adult film leak. But Lois's unhinged behavior didn't stop there. She also becomes a kleptomaniac, getting addicted to the thrill of stealing. This leads to her arrest, but her family breaks her out, turning them into fugitives as they go on the run. But that's not all. She's still got a lot more on her rap sheet. In Customer of the Week, Lois becomes obsessed with being the best customer at her coffee shop. And so, she poisons a barista and ends up kidnapping 3 other people. Eventually, she gets arrested and serves 6 months in jail, which frankly, she deserved. Lois may seem cool, but she can be downright cruel and vicious, like having the mountain handle a woman who cut her in a line.
Excuse me, I believe I was next.
Step aside, lady.
Lois also runs for mayor of Quahog to get rid of the corrupt Adam West, but once elected, she becomes just as corrupt as he was, and soon she's bought off by the oil companies to allow them to dump waste in the city's lake again.
Just a little bit of dumping in your lake.
This guy don't sit right with me, Lois. He don't sit right with me.
Another unhinged moment was Lois decluttering nearly everything in the house.
Boys, it's cluttering up my space. Get out. But get out of my house.
And I can't forget to add that she frequently flips out and physically attacks Peter.
You listen to me, you son of a bitch. I've got one thing in this lifetime. One thing.
You always say I never do anything around here.
And even when Peter comes up with stupid plans, she goes along with it, which makes her just as guilty. Like when she and Peter started cooking crystal meth. But Lois's reckless behavior doesn't end there. She's gone as far as cheating on Peter, which sets the stage for the next chapter in their rocky marriage. Lois and Peter's relationship is pretty complicated. Early on, it seemed like they truly cared for each other. But as the series went on, it became obvious they mostly just put up with one another. They frequently hint at how unhappy they are together. Lois in particular is fed up with Peter constantly causing chaos, pushing her patience to the breaking point. He rarely shows her respect and can be downright mean and cruel at times. On her birthday, Lois was already feeling down about getting older, but Peter just had to make things worse.
Lois, you may not be the young filly you were when I met you, but you're still my reliable old plow horse.
Lois! Mom?
This is so not something you say to your wife. So Lois flees the house, but when she later returned, she had completely changed her look to be more fun and youthful instead of middle-aged. But Lois didn't stop there. To match her newly declared youthful vibe, she became a Justin Bieber fan.
We love you, Justin!
Look!
That's Mom!
Oh my God!
Her fandom quickly went to extremes when she went backstage to try to seduce the young Justin Bieber himself. Thankfully, Peter showed up before things crossed the line from cringe to sexual harassment. Peter apologized for making Lois feel insecure, and the two made up. But that wasn't the only time Lois let her insecurities about her age lead her into infidelity. Even worse, she gave in with her own daughter's boyfriend. When Meg brought home her first actually normal boyfriend, the young man paid Lois some simple compliments, and Lois immediately started fantasizing about him. She even tried to get Meg out of the house just so she could make out with a boy. And when it comes to cheating, Lois has been unfaithful to Peter several times throughout the show. She's had an affair with President Bill Clinton. She's lusted for a handyman who came to make some repairs in the house.
Hi there, young lady.
But because she and Meg were competing for the innocent man's attention, they ended up sending him to an early grave. But it doesn't stop there. Lois also gets involved with Peter's half-son, Larry. This happens in the episode where all of Peter's sperm donor kids show up at his doorstep, and out of all of them, Lois somehow ends up attracted to Larry. Before long, they're out on walks together, doing this while still claiming it's totally platonic.
I got ice cream all over my fingers. Do you have a napkin?
No, but let me help you clean it off.
Soon the situation gets to the point where she's receiving back massages from Larry, and Peter not only has to walk in on them, but get beaten to a pulp by this younger and stronger version of him. Still, Lois continues to cheat on Peter, even without being subtle about it. Like the moment she grabbed the host of Family Feud and kissed him passionately right in front of Peter in the audience with no dignity at all.
I've been waiting for this for years.
In another episode, while Peter's off on a music tour with Quagmire, Lois doesn't waste time finding herself a new boyfriend. But the moment Peter pulls back into the driveway, she panics and tells the guy to scram fast before Peter finds out.
Boy, Larry, you gotta get out of here.
It's been a great 2 months. Meg, keep painting.
She's probably been in more cheating scandals than anyone even realizes. Like that one time Peter and the guys ended up in a part of town, and there was Lois walking out of a building with some mystery man right by her side. But the moment she sees Peter, she bolts right back inside.
He's like hypnotized. Do we wake him?
That's every red flag of infidelity waving at once, but none is probably as worse as Lois herself blatantly admitting that Chris is not even Peter's kid.
Seymour Hoffman?
I sure did. It was in his trailer during that tornado chasing movie, and all I know is 9 months later, Chris is born.
Yay, I'm a bastard!
But don't get the wrong idea. Peter has done some terrible things to Lois, and she has done some pretty bad things back. Their relationship is dysfunctional and often abusive. Beyond her complicated marriage with Peter, Lois has also been involved with other people. Lois has had flings with a few rock stars from the 80s. Jay Giles, Daryl Hall, even Gene Simmons. She also had a thing with Jerome back in the day. But the two guys who keep crushing on her the most, Brian and Quagmire. In different episodes, Lois actually ends up marrying both of them in alternate timelines. Their rivalry even leads to arguments, with Quagmire calling out Brian for constantly hitting on his best friend's wife. Though Quagmire's not exactly innocent either. He's just as guilty of trying to swoop in whenever he can. But then, across several episodes, she actually ends up marrying both of them, sometimes Brian, sometimes Quagmire, in alternate realities or what-if scenarios, which the show loves to explore. Another thing explored by the show when it comes to Lois is how it seems to suggest that Lois is bisexual. She once fantasized about running away with the cashier. And in Stewie Be Good, she jokes about women being teases, so she decided to stay with men. She also kisses one of Meg's lesbian friends just to teach Meg how to kiss a girl. But she's had a lot more experience kissing girls, as she once recalled practicing French kissing with friends. In the episode Steroids, Lois essentially rubs sunscreen on Bonnie and even later shares a surprisingly passionate kiss with her. But this now brings us to the concluding part of Lois's arc. Lois's later life and possible death. In the episode Stewie's Excellent Adventure, Lois and Peter are still together, even as their kids have grown up. Their adult children start pushing them to move into a retirement home. Surprisingly, life there isn't so bad. After all, the whole gang from Spooner Street ends up living there too, turning it into a big quirky family reunion. Lois shows she's a lot smarter than she gets credit for. In the future, when young Stewie shows up with his future self, she quickly figures out Stewie's actually her son from the past.
Here needs your help.
Stu, can we drop the whole Pablo thing? Do you think I don't remember my own little Stewie?
You clever.
She even helps by giving them money to buy a new time machine. But hitting 50 seems to be a rough milestone for Lois. In Lethal Weapons, Stewie reveals that his very first violent act was planting a time bomb in her uterus, then casually wishes for a happy 50th birthday. Later, in Quagmire's Baby, we learned that Chris nearly cut Lois in half, pulling out almost all her organs, and the doctor said she might not make it past 50. But despite the chaos, infidelity, and near-death experiences, Lois Griffin remains equal parts voice of reason and active participant in the madness that fuels the Griffin household. And speaking of madness, there's no one more unhinged than Stewie. Check out this video to see just how wild his story gets.